My name is Susan Bosse. I am currently the Director of Business and Workforce Development for CareerSource Florida. We have a team of about 5 people in the Business and Workforce Development team here. We represent the state workforce in specific sectors. So my sector is really a handful. I cover the healthcare and life sciences sector. And if any of you have any dealings with healthcare, you know that there's extraordinary demand in healthcare for workers at every level. So healthcare is really keeping me busy throughout the state, especially now with COVID and after COVID. So it's pretty crazy busy. And then we thought it would be a great idea to just add apprenticeships to that because I didn't have enough to do before. No, because I really believe that apprenticeships are something that it can be a really valuable tool for workforce development. And I'm really trying hard to introduce the idea of apprenticeships, not only to all businesses and all sectors, but specifically to healthcare, because I think there's just such a demand for that. But the other people on our team also handle other sectors. And I have a slide which I forgot to include, so I apologize, that shows you who everybody is. But our senior director, our senior vice president is Andrew Cornelius, and she handles major office expansions across the state. Daryl McCall handles advanced manufacturing, and Carmen Hilbert, who used to be Carmen Mims, she handles aviation and aerospace, which is a pretty exciting sector in our state, and she also handles IT. So that just kind of gives you a little understanding of what we do. And we really work with businesses, industry partners, chambers, workforce development, of course, economic development across the state in these various sectors. And these are our sectors of focus, but you know, it's not unusual for us to work in other sectors as well. Like, I don't know if you've noticed this, but there are a lot of restaurants that either are closing or are operating on limited hours because they just can't find the staff to work. So we were approached by the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association, the statewide organization, to help them put together a plan to help promote jobs in restaurants and hospitality. So we're also working quite closely with them right now. But you know, I know some of you know an awful lot about CareerSource, like Dana and Ray. But you know, we're asked to do this presentation a lot for different groups. We just recently did a similar longer presentation to Enterprise Florida. We're going to do a similar longer presentation to the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association. And you know, when I do these presentations to regional or even a state association, healthcare organizations, we find that people just don't realize all of the services that CareerSource can provide to them. So they often ask us to just kind of recap some of the things that they can provide. And as you know, as some of you know, there are 24 regional boards across the state of Florida. And of course, yours is CareerSource Central Florida. So really, I'm sure everyone in your region deals mostly with CareerSource Central Florida. So when it comes to talking to businesses, when you're dealing with businesses, you know, I like to say, and this is what I used to do when I worked in CareerSource Central Florida, is when I would meet with a small business or a business of any type, I would always say, listen, if you're going to hire someone or you're going to train someone in the next 6 months, just call me. Because what I'll do is I'll sit down, I'll listen to what your needs are, and then I'll try to match some of those needs with some of the programs that we have. It's really hard, I think, for an employer to just sit down and memorize or understand all of the programs that CareerSource offers. And I don't think that's their responsibility. I think that's our responsibility. I think that's the responsibility of the people at CareerSource to really get to understand what the business's needs are, and then choose programs that are likely to fit the needs of those businesses. So, you know, so basic things like job postings. I think you all know that CareerSource uses the Employ Florida website. So that's where if a business wants to post a job, they can post the job on Employ Florida. They can also look for candidates on Employ Florida, which is something that I like to do. I like to be able to look at candidates, like when my husband's company is looking for employees. I like to see the resumes. So, you know, job postings is kind of the basic service. and the business consultant can help any business with posting their own jobs. Another thing that they do quite a lot, I don't know if they've done them as often due to COVID, and I know they haven't done as many in person, of course, due to COVID, but CareerSource Central Florida can assist you with recruitment events. And we've done these in the past at employers' locations. We've done them at the CareerSource Florida, CareerSource office. That should say CareerSource, not CareerSource Florida office. And a new thing that so the state board actually paid for a virtual platform for a year during COVID so that employers could still do hiring events, but do them virtually. So for the past year, a lot of employers have been utilizing this virtual hiring event platform and job fair platform. We decided to renew that for another year. So if you have employers that are still concerned about doing any types of events in person, we certainly do have the ability to do these virtual hiring events for them. And these are free. None of these services cost a business anything. So it's a great value when you think about all the organization, especially the virtual platform. So that's something that we encourage employers to use. And especially right now, utilizing, pulling out all the stops right now for some of these industries like the restaurant and hospitality industry. Utilizing a variety of these things is really going to be helpful. Not one thing is really going to work right now. I think they're having a real hard time getting people to even show up for some hiring events. So you'll definitely want to look at, recommending some various, several of these opportunities. They also do pre-screening services, and this is really for those, I don't want to say higher level job openings, but this is for where, an employer really just needs a few people and they don't really want to get a lot of candidates that are not qualified. So CareerSource can offer pre-screening services where you tell them what the minimum qualifications are, and then CareerSource will pre-screen candidates before they send them to the employer. So that's another thing. And we break these into three categories: immediate hiring needs, and those three things meet the immediate hiring needs category. Then we have intermediate hiring needs, and some of the intermediate hiring needs, these are things that take a little bit longer. Like this isn't where I'm gonna have a position where I just need to hire someone, they're gonna start tomorrow, they're gonna be mostly trained for the position. So for intermediate hiring needs, we're going to look at things like on-the-job training. And this is a tool where an employer will provide the training for a candidate who doesn't quite meet the full skill set that this job's going to need. But we know that they could be trained within 6 months or less. So on-the-job training would actually provide the employer with a 50% refund or 50%, 50% refund in the employee's wages for up to 6 months. So that's a great tool to use because sometimes an employer cannot find someone that has all the qualifications that they're looking for, but they might find someone who's close, who maybe has 50% or 60%. So if the employer is willing to train the employee to bring their skill level up to what they need, CareerSource is willing to reimburse the employee for half the wages that you pay the employee. Sorry. Another, and this isn't necessarily for hiring, but employed worker training and incumbent worker training. This is where we have funding available to upskill some existing employees. So, and this can work in a variety of ways. So you can provide training. Say if you have people on staff that you want to either move them into another higher level role, or you just, technology has changed or something's changed and these employees really need to get some additional skills training. CareerSource, your local CareerSource board can provide you with employed worker training. And that is where they would, again, reimburse you for the cost of training for upskilling employees. And then incumbent worker training is actually a CareerSource Florida grant opportunity, and I'll talk about that just briefly in the next slide. And then, of course, our goal really is for employers to keep promoting training and promoting their staff so that people are getting additional skill sets but they're also, they're also increasing their wages. And then again, you can kind of start the process over with CareerSource helping you recruit new employees as you start moving those employees forward. And then for long-term talent development, if you haven't heard about apprenticeships in the news, whether it's federal government promoting apprenticeships or our state governor promoting apprenticeships, apprenticeships are something that, have been used for probably 100 years, mostly in the trades. And basically the idea of an apprenticeship is that you have an employer, a registered sponsor, so an employer or an education entity or maybe an association like Florida Makes actually goes to the state of Florida and registers as an apprenticeship sponsor. And then they are able to work with employers, or if they are the employer, they can hire employees that have little to no skills for the job that they need to hire them for. They're gonna pay them at a much lower rate. So if the average wage for the position you're hiring for is $30 an hour, for somebody who's fully skilled, you can hire someone in an apprenticeship and maybe only pay them $17 an hour because they don't have the skills yet. But while they're serving as an apprentice, they're going to get on-the-job training, and they're also going to get instruction. So that instruction could be at a local community college, or it could be at Orange Technical College. So we're going to combine on-the-job training with instruction and also mentorship. And that employee is going to learn the job, starting off at a lower wage. And then as they meet certain milestones, they're going to get additional bumps in their wages, right? So by the time they're done with an apprenticeship, which usually lasts at least a year, but it could go as far as 4 years, as the apprentice kind of goes up that ladder and learns additional skill sets, then their wages increase as well. So that's a really great tool for long-term talent development. And the benefits to the business are that you're really developing your own talent. Like, instead of waiting for someone to train employees so that they meet your needs, you're going to say, listen, I'm going to take employees, I'm going to take new employees, or I'm going to take some of the existing employees that already work for me, and I'm going to enter them into this long-term training plan so that I can develop them the way I want them to be trained. And what we find is that people who go through apprenticeship programs, so the apprentices themselves, they tend to be more loyal. Like, I don't know about all the other sectors, but in healthcare, there's a huge turnover, especially for those entry-level positions like CNAs. And that costs companies so much money when they're constantly turning over and having to recruit and train new people. And what we're finding with apprenticeships, and what we've always found, is that employees who go through an apprenticeship program are often more loyal and stay with their employers longer than employees who don't. And then the last thing I just want to briefly mention, and when Dana asked me to speak today, I told her that unfortunately we do not have the guidelines set yet for our CareerSource Florida grants. But as you probably know, we have two grants. One is the Quick Response Training Grant. And this one is really this is the one that economic development agencies use oftentimes when they're recruiting new companies into the region or into the state. And this Quick Response Training Grant program provides funding for new employees, for new hires. And we follow along the qualified targeted industry list from Enterprise Florida when we make these grants. And this application doesn't open until July 1st, and applications are reviewed first come, first served basis. There probably aren't many changes to the Quick Response Training Grant. Usually an economic development agency will reach out to us. They'll give us a list of all of the positions that are going to be hired new when the company either expands in the state of Florida or moves to the state of Florida. And then we have a calculation that basically determines how much we're going to be able to give to train these employees based on a formula. And the Quick Response Training, I don't have the exact amount that we have this year. But I will tell you that it'll go very quickly. It went very fast last year. It'll probably go even faster this year. But I don't have all the details. So when the guidelines do come out for both of these training programs, I'll share them with Dana and she can share them with you because they're really great opportunities. And then the Incumbent Worker Training Grant, this is the grant that provides funding reimbursement for existing employees. This application also opens on July 1st. This year, the priorities have changed. So this program in particular is going to see a lot of changes for this year. So the number one goal of this grant in this coming fiscal year is going to be given to companies that are going to be providing training for their employees so that they can obtain credentials of value. Now, we don't know what those credentials of value are yet. We can probably guess, but we haven't quite determined what those are. The other thing, if you've ever worked with an incumbent worker training or an employer that was looking to get incumbent worker training, in the past, it was only for for-profit companies. Okay, so both of these grants are only available to for-profit companies. The problem lies in healthcare, where a lot of healthcare organizations and healthcare providers are not for-profit. So this is the first year that they're actually opening up applications to nonprofit and government healthcare entities. And again, this is for training them with credentials of value. In addition to utilizing incumbent worker training for just short-term training, you can also utilize this fund for apprenticeship training. So that's just another tool that you can use when you're a registered apprenticeship sponsor. You can use incumbent worker training, and you can use WIOA dollars, the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act dollars. So if you have someone that's interested in learning more about an apprenticeship, I can kind of talk to them and show them how they can save money by utilizing apprenticeship model, and how they can get funding from incumbent worker training, from on-the-job training, and even from employed worker training. And then the funding maximum used to be $200,000 for this program, and we're not sure if that's going to change as well. So we're hoping, the application opens July 1st, we're hoping that the new guidelines will be approved by the governor's office by hopefully June, but I'm not quite sure about that. So as soon as I do find out, I will share that with Dina so we can share that with everybody. And then, for additional resources, you can always reach out to the CareerSource Florida website. And then I want to introduce you to the Apprentice Florida website. If anyone is interested in learning more about becoming an apprenticeship sponsor in the state of Florida, please visit the Apprentice Florida website. Some of the other benefits I didn't mention is that the Department of Education, who administers the apprenticeship program, they actually have a $10 million grant fund. And that grant fund last December awarded probably 30 or 40 education providers, businesses, and industry partners with grant funding to either start an apprenticeship program or to grow an existing apprenticeship program. So besides that funding, they also had some additional follow-up grants of $20,000 and $700 per apprentice to assist the apprentices. So what I'm thinking is that if anyone is interested in Apprenticeship Florida, in starting an apprenticeship, now's the time, because there's a lot of funding coming down, both from the state and I would assume maybe from the federal government. I know the state Department of Economic Opportunity just applied in partnership with CareerSource Florida and the DEO. They just applied for a federal grant for apprenticeship programs. So you're going to start seeing a lot more funding available to companies or any entity that qualifies to become a registered registered apprenticeship sponsor. So does anyone have any questions? I'm going to stop sharing. Does everyone? I'll stop sharing, and then if anyone has any questions, I can answer, or I can try to answer those for you.
Hey, Susan, this is Rafael. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Rafael?
Good. Sorry, I came in late. I thought it was in person, so I went to the other building.
No worries.
And perhaps I missed this. I know there's a grant out there that companies in the incubator use a lot, where CareerSource will pay a percentage of the person's salary for a period of time. Is that something that we're gonna have available again in 2021, 2022?
We should have all of those programs available again. And I can't really tell you for sure. I did not check whether the funding is still available for on-the-job training. You're talking about on-the-job training, it sounds like. And the on-the-job training, Raphael, will reimburse an employee for up to 50%. And in some cases, I don't know if this is true in Central Florida, but at some of our boards, it will reimburse the employer for up to 75% of the new employees on-the-job training for up to 6 months.
Okay.
So starting July 1st, our fiscal year starts July 1st. So on July 1st, we should have all of those programs available.
So when they apply now, they basically applying for the July 1st window.
So
No?
yeah,
Okay.
no, you could reach out. So you're talking about the on-the-job training is offered through CareerSource Central Florida. You could reach out to them today.
Okay. Thank you.
Anytime. Right. Now, that doesn't mean that they always have funding. I mean, I was at CareerSource several years, and sometimes we ran out of funding before the end of the fiscal year. And I don't know if Ray could probably speak to that, whether they still have funding for June or not.
Yeah, the OJTs are still going along. Actually, the priorities shifted a little bit, for probably years. Dana and Susan can attest to this. It's been about internships. And then basically end of last year, shifting into this year, it was probably, related to the pandemic and everything like that, resource allocation and everything. But the OJTs became the focus, at least for the CareerSource Central Florida business team. And so that's still going along well. I believe it's still funded. I'm sure it's still funded now. And, we've only got, 6 weeks left in the fiscal year. So we probably should be fine. And I, from what I've heard recently, it should still be, that still should be the focus going into the next fiscal year as well.
And Ray, I didn't mention internships, paid internships. Does CareerSource Central Florida still do paid internships? I guess they do, right?
They do.
Okay.
It's probably scrutinized a little bit more in terms of the businesses that they offer it to. I know the
Okay.
business team has kind of switched away from that. And so it's kind of on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. Yeah, I don't typically mention that because I don't know if every board has it. And every board has a variety of programs that are a little bit different from some of the others. Like last year when we went to meet with Tampa Bay, they had a huge amount, which CareerSource Florida, Central Florida did as well. They had a huge amount of CARES Act funding. And I think they were using that for internships, on-the-job training, just a variety of things, as well as individual training accounts. So individuals could go and get training. Any other questions or thoughts? Has anyone worked with or utilized apprenticeships as a training model, or know of any companies that have recently?
Hey, Susan, I developed an apprenticeship program in Ohio at that time. Through the state, it required, it was specific to our business, but it also required other aspects of that program so that when an apprentice is done, that apprenticeship is recognized among a multitude of other industries. I'm reading this Apprenticeship Florida. It seems it's more dedicated to the company versus offering someone a value that could be recognized through a multitude of different industries. Am I reading this wrong, or?
No. So first of all, thank you for mentioning the credential. I neglected to mention that one of the benefits to the apprentice when they are finished with an apprenticeship program, a registered apprenticeship program, whether it be through the federal government or through the state government, they will walk away with a certification. So they will walk away with an industry recognized certification. Like Tom said, that certification is the same in Florida as it is anywhere in the United States. But what that means to the employer or to the industry, to the sponsor of the apprenticeship program, is that they have to meet very strict guidelines. There has to be a very well-defined training plan so that their employees, when they're done with the apprenticeship, have the same skills and knowledge and abilities as every other apprentice in the United States that graduates with that same certification. Does that make sense? Oh, and the second part of your question about Apprentice Florida. So the Apprentice Florida website is really designed, and you'll probably see, like in LinkedIn and social media posts, that we do a lot of promotion of Apprentice Florida. The whole idea behind Apprentice Florida is to introduce the idea of apprenticeships to businesses. So the website itself is very business focused. It reaches out to businesses. In fact, businesses, and you're all welcome to do this, businesses can fill out, if you click on the link at the top that says businesses, you can fill out your information, and then you'll start getting a series of 4 emails that are automatically generated that just tell you a little bit more about apprenticeships. There's also, if you look in the upper right-hand corner when you go to the Apprentice Florida website, there's the little YouTube icon. And if you click on the YouTube icon, they put together some really great videos that basically give you just the basics all the way to kind of how to get your apprenticeship started. But keep in mind that the Apprentice Florida website is really just a marketing tool. The apprenticeships themselves, the businesses or education partners, whoever wants to register as an apprenticeship sponsor, that's done through the Department of Education. So what'll happen is that we'll work with a company and we'll talk to them about what they have to do to become an apprentice. We'll make sure that what they're really looking for is an apprenticeship, because sometimes they just want short-term training, right? So once we determine that they're prepared to go to the Department of Education, that's when we'll send them over to the Department of Education, and they have apprenticeship training representatives across the state that will work with the business to develop the training plan, to make sure all the standards are met, to make sure all the documents are accurate, and to check on them as they're going, check on the apprentices to make sure that they're getting the proper training, so that when they are finished, they will have that industry recognized certification. Any other questions? Thoughts?
Susan, can you send me over the slide that you left out that has the different people with what, like manufacturing and
Yeah.
the different.
I'm sorry, I will send that. I'll send it to you as an attachment, and then you can forward that to everybody.
Perfect.
Sound good?
Perfect. Does anybody have any questions?
I do. I just had, kind of a thought. This is such an important subject right now because there's such a labor shortage. I mean, my daughter owns a small business. She, gets a bunch of people saying, yeah, I'll be there, for the interview, and then nobody shows up. Or they go through the interview and they don't show up for the first day. So I was just thinking, this would be, maybe a good topic for a Good Morning Seminole platform or something to get really the word out about, because this is impacting everybody, every business. I don't know. It was just.
So Tina, so you're absolutely right. Like, my husband still owns a business in Seminole County, and we have been trying to find somebody for months, like since October, to work. And I think when we started, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, we were paying $13 an hour. And these are laborers, they don't have to have any skills. We'll train them. We put ads on Facebook, and we probably got 25 people that said they were interested. And we said we were paying $16 an hour. And do you know how many? We probably, my stepson does the hiring, and he probably called, I don't know, 10 people to come in for interviews. And do you know how many showed up? 0.
Right.
Not one showed up. We had a referral from one of our other workers. He said, hey, my friend's looking for a job. We interviewed him. We told him we were paying $16 an hour. He's like 19. He has no skills, no education, nothing. He said, yeah, I don't want to do it. We were like, oh my gosh, it's $16 an hour, my friend. Like, why not? So we said to him, I'll tell you what, we turned down like a $10,000 job because we didn't have enough staff. So we said, we'll pay you $18 an hour. So at $18 an hour, he took the job, right? Guess how long he lasted? A month, and he was done. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the problem is.
I don't either. But businesses, first they were struggling to keep their doors open because of COVID. And now, because they're open, and they're going to close because they can't find people. It's just so ridiculous.
I know. I saw a post the other day. It was on the Oviedo website, and they had somebody took a picture of Burger King, the drive-through. There was a sign that said, "We're closed till 8 p.m. because we couldn't get anybody to come to work today." So there's a huge problem, and this is way bigger. This is way bigger than like Career Source or anything we can do.
But the small businesses would like to know, I'm sure, and I was just trying to think of how we can get them incorporated in a bigger audience and get, and get some synergy going on brainstorming. What do you do about it?
Yeah, I even saw this morning on the news that there was a like a county commissioner or something, and I forget what county it was in, maybe Volusia, but anyway, He's actually campaigning and saying, hey, going out into the community and saying, come on guys, let's get back to work. Like, let's stop collecting unemployment if that's what you're doing. Let's all get back to work. Let's support our businesses. Let's help out. It's really across the board. It's across the board. And when you look at apprenticeships, that's not a quick solution, because it takes a while to get the apprenticeship up and running, right? It takes a long while. It takes months. So that's not the long-term solution. But I think in the long run, the apprenticeship can help solve a problem. And one of those problems is, especially when you look at someone like a CNA, right? A CNA doesn't make a lot of money, right? What do they make in Orange County?
$10 an hour, maybe
$12 an hour. So I look at a CNA as someone who's like, well, I don't want to make $12 an hour forever. And this is hard work, right? So the idea is, okay, so you take a CNA in at $12 an hour, but you offer them a career pathway, so that they can gain additional certifications, additional skills. Maybe they can become an LPN if you have a nice apprenticeship program in place where they can become an LPN and maybe become an RN. So what happens all of a sudden is they say, well, look, I don't really want to be a CNA, but I know that's the first step. I look at it kind of like a college degree, right? Like my son went to college as a freshman, right? So if he thought he was going to be a freshman forever, don't you think he'd get tired of that and drop out? But no, he knows he's not going to be a freshman forever. He knows if he works hard and he learns, he's going to become a sophomore and then a junior, a senior, and then he's going to graduate, right? So that's kind of how I look at an apprenticeship, is that you're going to start off maybe at the bottom, but at least the employer has a very clear pathway to show you that you don't have to be that entry-level wage person forever.
Yeah.
And I think adding to that, in the larger scope of things, and over the past, 5 years, it's become even more, I guess, more of discussion through all the community, is a sense of, that not everyone's made to go to college. You just mentioned that, Susan. Not everyone's made to that. So apprenticeship is, I know it, like you had mentioned earlier, apprenticeships typically had been for the trades and things like that, but I think that's opening up as well. And, when you hear of the opportunities, again, within the trades even, so if you're talking, having that discussion at the right time for that particular high school student who isn't necessarily made to go to college or doesn't want to go to college or take on the debt to go to college in many cases, that to hear the discussion of, you can go for welding or HVAC, something like that, and work through an apprentice program, and then before you're 30 years old, have the opportunity to be making six figures in some cases. That's a pretty, that's a good career path for some as well. I mean, obviously college is still, in a sense, the gold standard. Soon to be working for UCF, I think I have to say that now, but no, at least in terms of the overall economy and the growth within specifically the Central Florida region, you have to find the right fit for each person, and so the apprenticeship, is a great pathway to do that as well.
Susan,
Yeah,
is there?
That's a great point.
Sorry.
So, go ahead, Erin.
I was going to say, is there a relationship between the magnet high schools and your organization, so that you're getting them as they're in their junior or senior year?
So that not always, but there are career academies in all the high schools, or a lot of the high schools. Those are all managed under the Department of Education. So a lot of times what we'll do is we will connect, we might connect an employer to some of those local career academies. Like if there's a large need for CNAs and we know that there's a high school that's, I was actually just talking to a girl in Jacksonville who is a CNA. And I said to her, so how'd you get your CNA license? And she said, I got that in high school. And then they did like an internship while she was in high school. She did an internship at one of the long-term care facilities. And then of course, after that, she started working for this long-term care organization. So, getting the CNA license is kind of the hardest part, right? So if you can get that in high school, or getting any certification in high school, and then taking that instead of going to college, because like Ray said, not everyone wants to go to college and accumulate that debt, then utilize that certification in an apprenticeship program where you can kind of grow your skills and grow your certifications and continue on with your education. The other thing about an apprenticeship that I just wanted to mention too is that, we hear this in clinical care, is that sometimes someone goes to school to become whatever. They might get their CNA certification, they might get their LPN or RN, and then they start working with patients and they're like, oh wait, I don't know if I really like this. I don't know if I like working with patients. So one of the nice things about an apprenticeship is it gives you an opportunity, before you spend a dime on education, it gives you an opportunity to learn whether you even like the industry or not. Maybe you start off Florida has an industrial maintenance technician apprenticeship program that employers that are advanced manufacturing can utilize. It's an online program. But so you can hire somebody and start them out on the manufacturing floor, learn, in this apprenticeship program, and they might get, a few months in and say, wait, this advanced manufacturing thing's just not for me. I'd rather be in healthcare. So it gives them an opportunity without spending any money. Think of all the college students, probably my son, who goes through 4 years of learning a degree, and then at the end of the 4 years says, what am I going to do with this political science degree? I don't know why I did this. You know what I mean? So apprenticeships offer a lot of value, both for the employer and for the employee.
And I did want to say that here in Seminole County, the local Career Source Central Florida and the K through 12 schools and the colleges, universities, they all work together. So they work closely. It's kind of funny because there may be one person like in the K through 12, they focus more on the youth because they're youth, which youth is 16 to 24. So it goes into adulthood. So they have programs that they do with Career Source and the K through 12, but then the K through 12 works closely with like Seminole State College, UCF, and they work with the businesses. It's all a big circle, but it's quite interesting when you get involved in it and see how everybody is involved. So very good. Does anybody else have any questions for Susan?
Yeah, real quickly, to touch upon another part of what Susan had mentioned in terms of the quick response training, the statewide grants that are available through Career Source Florida. It's interesting and something for people to keep an eye on in terms of really from a legislative point of view, Elizabeth being on the call here as well. The quick response training, again, the fund gets replenished in July, and so runs July through June. Because QTI wasn't renewed last year, there was no. It's the qualified tax incentive, so that's a statewide incentive to attract businesses to come to Florida or expand in Florida. And so because that wasn't there, the QRT grant, which again is for companies, it's a grant available if they meet a certain salary requirement for a certain amount of jobs in an area. That fund was gone before half the fiscal year was up. So because there was no QTI, the QRT was gone, before the end of last year. So July to December, that was gone. And again, as Susan mentioned, it's first come, first serve. So I believe in the most recent legislative session, Elizabeth, or it's if you guys follow a little bit further, the QTI was not extended again. And the QRT was funded, I believe, for $1.5 million less. I think it was around $7 million this year for the upcoming year. I don't know if the governor had signed off on it, but it's something for especially economic development folks and people and public policy folks to keep an eye on for how the legislative all the legislators are kind of where their minds are at from an economic development perspective. It's it's a little bit disappointing for sure on certain levels, and whenever you hear discussion about economic development, it's pointing towards Research Triangle up in North Carolina. That's kind of the top of the heap in terms of companies and where companies look at, and the incentives are there as well. And so I know it's pandemic, and our dependence as a state, as a region on tourism and hospitality is something to keep is always going to be there. But we've been working, I think, as a state for the last 10, 15, 20 years to diversify our economy. And these types of hits taken from an economic development perspective of having incentives aren't everything, but it does, check a box in terms of when companies are looking to come to the area. So again, just something to keep your eye and ears about, and discussions with local elected officials and state elected officials is always, can go a long way in terms of from the business community perspective.
Hey, I have a quick question for all of you. I'm just curious because I see this in the news. Are you seeing companies relocating here from those states that were particularly impacted negatively by COVID shutdowns?
Having working with the OEP, I think they saw an uptick, definitely in terms of coming from other parts of the country. They saw how Florida's, been opened up and, navigated the pandemic pretty well, and at least from a business perspective. And, I think, a lot of companies have, have taken that into account. I know specifically, and I don't know if this was a top factor, but Sonesta Hotels through the OEP, they're headquartered in Boston right now, and the OEP and Sonesta Hotels made an announcement about a month ago that they're going to start to relocate and create another headquarters down in Orlando, downtown. And then the plans are over the next 5-10 years is to create a training hub and then potentially a big campus for them, and potentially move all of their headquarters from the Northeast down here. Again, I'm sure this has been in planning for years, but the pandemic and how business friendly Florida is, I think, helped us stand out and make that connection.
Yeah.
What was that organization? Sorry.
Sonesta Hotels.
Sorry?
Sonesta Hotels.
Sonesta. Oh.
Sonesta, yeah, Sonesta.
Okay.
In that vein, Susan, we are currently working alongside the Orlando Economic Partnership to secure a company from California. They are choosing between Orlando and another Florida city that shall remain nameless. And we are putting our best foot forth and rolling out the carpet to make sure they choose the 407 over that other area code here. But it's a company that is in the tech space, and they just have a lot of promise.
Great. Yeah, I figured we would see businesses from New York State, California. I mean, the usual places.
I think the working virtual is also helping businesses that have employees that can be anywhere.
Yeah.
Where do they want to live? Where, the CEO, the COO, so forth, where do they want to live? And they're looking at Florida due to everything that we have to offer.
Yeah.
So.
As we can tell by the rising costs of housing and the shortage.
Well, I think that's everywhere. Where I'm from, I have a house that I was getting ready to put on the market, and 2 days before I got an offer, a full price offer.
Yeah.
So it's good.
We too have a townhouse in Orlando or near Orlando that we are selling. And we got 20 offers, and it's not that great, but we got offers as high as, I don't know, 15,000 over what we were asking. I'm sure it's a townhouse, so it's not like a big nice house, but we used it as a rental property, and now's the best time to get rid of it. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's a whole other
It's a good time
story.
to sell if you don't have to buy.
What,
Yeah.
Tina?
It's a good time to sell if you don't have to buy.
Right.
Yeah. We bought this not as an investment even. We bought it for one of our sons to live in, and he bought his own house this year. So we were like, yeah, thanks for hanging on to that until the value went up considerably. So, but anyway, thank you all very much. If you need to reach me, if you have any questions, if I can help connect you with anybody, please don't hesitate to reach out. Dana, thank you so much for inviting me to speak today. It was great seeing everyone. I really appreciate having an opportunity to see everybody again.